The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the dry, rocky plains. Eli Mercer rode slowly across the ridge, his horse's hooves crunching on the rough soil. His ranch was miles behind him now, tucked between two hills where no one could easily find it. It had been years since he left to visit the nearest market on the outskirts of the colony. Traveling had never been easy, but Eli had supplies to trade and tools to repair. He always went alone. He liked it that way. Solitude had become his companion, and he liked the quiet of his ranch more than the noise of others. As he approached the small town, Eli could hear the hum of activity long before he saw it. People shouted, traders called for attention, and the smell of smoke and cooking food filled the air. His eyes scanned the crowd cautiously. Though he had been many times before, the market always felt overwhelming. Alien traders and humans mixed together, selling everything from livestock to rare metals salvaged from derelict ships. Most people ignored him, seeing him as just another quiet rancher. Eli didn't mind. He had always preferred watching from the edges rather than jumping into the chaos. He wandered past stalls selling fruits, dried meats, and mechanical parts until a commotion caught his attention. A small cage sat on a wooden platform in the center of the square. Inside, a young woman stood tall, her posture proud even though she was trapped. She had dark hair braided neatly and eyes that seemed to shine with fire. Around her, a few buyers whispered and laughed, pointing at her as if she were a curiosity rather than a human being. Eli's brow furrowed. Something about her drew his attention. Her confidence, despite her confinement, was unlike anything he had seen before. Most people would shrink under such circumstances, but she didn't. Instead, she stood straight, her chin lifted, her gaze daring anyone to underestimate her. The auctioneer's voice boomed. "Do I hear 2 credits? 2 credits for this fine specimen. She's strong, agile, and loyal. Only 2 credits and she can be yours." Eli's stomach twisted. The word specimen made his blood run cold. She was a person, not an object. But no one seemed to care. People laughed at the low price and whispered about how lucky the buyer would be. Eli could feel the heat of anger rising inside him, but he kept his expression calm. The young woman's eyes met his. There was no fear there, only recognition. As if she could sense his intentions. Eli felt a strange connection. He didn't know why, but he knew he couldn't leave her there. When the auctioneer shouted again, Eli stepped forward. 2 credits, he said firmly, dropping the coins onto the table. The crowd laughed at the bargain. "You'll regret it," one man called. "That girl isn't a pet. She's trouble." Eli didn't answer. He ignored the comments, unlocking the cage and helping her out. She flexed her fingers, stretching as if she had been waiting for this moment. Her movements were precise like a trained warrior. "I'm Ayanna," she said quietly but with strength. "And I am not anyone's property." Eli nodded. "I know. That's why you're coming with me." The journey back to the ranch was quiet at first. Ayanna walked beside Eli's horse, her eyes scanning the horizon with an alertness that made Eli respect her even more. He wondered about her past. She had skills that suggested rigorous training, perhaps in survival or combat. "Where are you from?" Eli asked after a while. Ayanna's lips pressed into a thin line. "I come from a tribe that once protected its people across many worlds. We were scattered after the wars. I've been alone for a long time." Eli's heart softened. He knew what it meant to be alone. He had chosen solitude, but not because he had no one. It was because people often brought trouble. Yet seeing her standing there, strong and proud, he felt a sense of companionship he hadn't felt in years. Suddenly, a shout rang out from the distance. A group of scavengers had spotted them. Eli's hand went to the rifle at his side, and Ayanna's hand moved to a small blade she carried. They exchanged a look, an unspoken agreement that they would survive this together. The scavengers rode in, their vehicles kicking up dust as they charged. Eli's horse whinnied and he tightened his grip on the reins. Ayanna moved swiftly, leaping onto the back of one of the smaller vehicles. With precise strikes, she disarmed one of the attackers, sending him crashing into the dirt. Eli fired his rifle carefully, not wasting shots, taking down another attacker before he could get close. The fight was over as quickly as it began. The scavengers retreated, realizing they had underestimated their opponents. Eli looked at Ayanna, impressed by her skill and calmness under pressure. "You're good," he said simply. Ayanna nodded. "I've survived worse. But you're strong too. Not just with weapons, but with your mind. You plan carefully." Eli allowed himself a small smile. "It helps to survive alone." As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in orange and purple, they reached the ridge that led to Eli's ranch. From a distance, the small cluster of buildings looked peaceful, almost untouched by the chaos of the world beyond. Eli felt a sense of pride. He had built this place from nothing, and now he would share it with someone who deserved it. Ayanna paused at the edge of the ridge, looking at the ranch with a mixture of curiosity and awe. "It's different," she said softly. Eli nodded. "It's home, and now it can be yours too if you want it." She looked at him, her eyes searching his. Finally, she spoke. "I don't know what home feels like anymore, but maybe this is a start." Eli extended his hand, and after a moment she took it. It was a simple gesture, but it spoke volumes. Two people, both shaped by hardship and loss, forming a bond that neither had expected. The first night at the ranch was quiet. Ayanna helped Eli secure the gates and inspect the perimeter. Together, they repaired fences and reinforced storage areas. She moved with precision, learning quickly, and teaching Eli a few tricks of her own along the way. Sitting by the fire that night, Eli noticed how natural it felt to have someone there, someone who could share the burdens and the silence. Ayanna, for her part, watched the flames dance, contemplating the safety she had found in this remote place. "I've never had a place like this," she admitted. Eli shrugged, tossing a small stick into the fire.
"Neither have I."
Until now. They spoke little after that, but the silence was comfortable, not awkward. It was a quiet understanding, the beginning of a partnership forged not by obligation, but by mutual respect. As the stars appeared overhead, vast and endless in the clear night sky, Eli realized something he hadn't in years. For the first time, he wasn't alone, and neither was she. The wind whispered through the canyon, carrying the scent of the desert. Out there, dangers still lurked. Raiders, wild creatures, and the unpredictable universe itself. But for tonight, the ranch was safe. The fire burned bright, and two souls found comfort in each other's presence. Eli Mercer, the lonely rancher, had bought more than a warrior for 2 credits. He had found a companion, a partner, and perhaps in some small way, family. And Ayanna, the Apache warrior, had found a place where she could finally rest, learn, and maybe, just maybe, belong. The night stretched on, full of possibilities and unspoken promises. Tomorrow would bring challenges, but tonight they were ready, together. The morning sun rose slowly over the ranch, casting long golden rays across the dusty plains. Eli, Mercer, and Ayanna worked quietly, tending to the animals, checking fences, and reinforcing the perimeter. Since Ayanna had arrived, the ranch had taken on a new energy. Her presence was like a spark, bringing life and precision to everything Eli did. "Those gates will hold better if we reinforce the hinges," Ayanna said, pointing to the main gate. Her eyes scanned every corner of the fence as if she could already predict every weak point. Eli nodded. "Good idea. Let's do it before anyone even thinks of testing it." The two worked side by side, a rhythm forming naturally between them. It was strange for Eli, who had spent years alone, but he found himself smiling more than he had in decades. Ayanna, despite her quiet nature, seemed to carry a confidence that lifted him. She was strong, clever, and unafraid, and that strength rubbed off on him. As the sun climbed higher, they paused for a brief rest. Ayanna leaned against a fence post, brushing dust from her clothes. "Your life here is simple," she said, "but it has strength. Everything is controlled, every move planned." Eli shrugged. "It has to be. Out here, one mistake can be deadly. You've seen that today." She nodded, her eyes reflecting the morning light. "Yes, but strength comes from more than planning. It comes from courage, and you have that too. I can see it in the way you think and act." Eli felt a twinge of pride. Compliments were rare in his lonely life. He looked at her, and for a moment he wondered what her life had been like before the cage. Their conversation was interrupted by a distant rumble. Eli's ears perked up immediately. "Do you hear that?" he asked. Ayanna's hand went to her small blade, her body tensing. "Raiders," she said calmly. "They know you have something worth taking." Eli's heart sank. He had hoped their quiet life would remain untouched, but it seemed danger was unavoidable. "We need to prepare," he said, already moving toward the barn to gather weapons. Ayanna followed, her movements silent but swift. She checked every entrance, every weak point, while Eli loaded rifles and secured traps around the ranch. They worked efficiently, each anticipating the other's needs. For the first time, Eli realized that he was no longer just a lone survivor. They were a team. As the sun reached its peak, the sound of engines approached. Dust rose in the distance as a group of raiders appeared, armed and organized. Their leader, a tall man with a scar across his face, waved a hand, signaling his crew to surround the ranch. Eli took a deep breath. "Stay close," he whispered to Ayanna. She nodded. "We'll handle this, together." The battle began with a roar of engines and the clash of metal. Eli fired carefully, hitting targets with precision. Ayanna moved like a shadow, leaping from one high point to another, disarming and incapacitating raiders without hesitation. Her skill was breathtaking, and Eli felt a surge of admiration for her abilities. The raiders underestimated them. They had expected an easy victory against a lone rancher, but they had not counted on the combination of Eli's intelligence and Ayanna's agility. Every trap they had set worked perfectly, slowing the attackers and forcing them into Eli's line of fire. One raider tried to sneak around the back of the barn. Ayanna was already there, waiting silently. With a swift move, she disarmed him and tied him up. Eli watched in awe. She was not just a fighter. She was a protector. The leader of the raiders finally realized that the fight was not going in his favor. "Fall back!" he shouted, waving his arms. But Eli and Ayanna pressed on, not giving them a chance to regroup. One by one, the raiders were defeated or fled, leaving their leader to retreat alone. When the dust settled, Eli leaned against a post, breathing heavily. Ayanna stood beside him, wiping sweat from her brow. They had won, but the fight had reminded them that danger was never far in this harsh world. "You did well," Eli said, clapping her on the shoulder. "Better than I could have imagined." Ayanna smiled faintly. "So did you. You think fast and you act faster. That is why we survived." The victory strengthened their bond. That night, as the sun set and the sky filled with stars, they sat by the fire, tending to minor injuries and sharing stories. Ayanna spoke of her tribe, of the skills they had taught her, and of the values they lived by: honor, courage, and loyalty. Eli shared stories of his life on the ranch, of the quiet years he spent building a home from nothing. "I think," Ayanna said softly, "that we were meant to meet. Not by chance, but by choice. We both needed each other, even if we didn't know it." Eli nodded, staring into the flames. "You're right. I've lived alone for too long. I didn't know how much I needed someone like you until now." In the days that followed, life at the ranch settled into a new rhythm. Eli and Ayanna trained together, improving defenses and teaching each other new skills. She learned how to care for the animals and repair fences, while he learned survival strategies and combat techniques from her. Each day, their respect and trust grew, but they knew that peace was temporary. Word of Ayanna's heritage and the victory at the ranch had spread quickly. Other groups might come, seeking her or trying to take the ranch. Eli and Ayanna prepared for the worst, knowing they would face it together. One afternoon, as they repaired a damaged fence, Eli paused. "Ayanna, I want you to know something. You're not just welcome here. You belong here. I want you to take my name if you wish. It's a promise, not just words." Ayanna looked at him, surprised. The gesture carried weight, meaning that she was not just a guest or a fighter for hire. She was family. I accept," she said finally, a smile breaking across her face. "I am Ayanna Mercer now." Eli nodded, feeling a sense of pride and fulfillment he had never known. They were no longer just two survivors. They were partners, bound by trust and shared purpose. Days later, scouts reported another group of raiders approaching. This time, Eli and Ayanna were ready. They had reinforced every gate, set traps, and planned an ambush. When the raiders arrived, confident and loud, they were met with unexpected resistance. The battle was fierce but quick. Eli's knowledge of the terrain and Ayanna's combat skills gave them the advantage. The raiders, unprepared for such coordination, were forced to retreat, leaving their leader behind once again. Eli and Ayanna watched them flee, knowing that their ranch had become more than just a home. It was a fortress, a symbol of human resilience and courage. That night, as they sat by the fire, Eli looked at the stars and then at Ayanna. "We've done it. We've built something that lasts." Ayanna smiled, resting her hand on his. "Yes, and it's only the beginning. Whatever comes next, we face it together." The wind whispered through the plains, carrying with it a sense of calm and triumph. The ranch, once quiet and isolated, now stood as a testament to human ingenuity, bravery, and the power of trust. Eli Mercer and Ayanna Mercer, two people who had found each other against all odds, knew that they could face whatever challenges the universe sent their way. Together, they had turned a lonely ranch into a home. Together, they had turned danger into victory, and together they would face the future, strong, united, and unstoppable. As the fire crackled and the stars shone brightly overhead, the ranch stood safe and ready. Two humans, ordinary in appearance but extraordinary in courage and determination, had proven that even in a harsh, unforgiving world, humanity could prevail. The night was quiet, peaceful, and full of promise. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new adventures, and perhaps new allies. But for tonight, Eli and Ayanna rested, knowing that they were no longer alone. They were a team. They were family. And they were ready for anything.